LeBron retiring, because we have heard for year after year, LeBron's going to retire soon. LeBron is going to retire soon. And guess what? He still has not retired, which is incredible, by the way. Like, the fact that he could still play at this level at 40 years old is crazy. So I just want to talk about this because this came up again recently, as it, seems to come up every year for LeBron now. But of course, at 40 years old, people are like, is this really going to be his last year? Because this is technically the last year of his contract if he opts in. So first, let's say something very interesting that will put it in perspective. 15 years ago, LeBron James went to Miami. 15 years later, he's still playing in the NBA. Crazy, right? Let's say something else. When he was drafted in 2003, did you know that there was no iPhones? iPhones did not exist when he was drafted. His playing career is literally longer than the existence of an iPhone. Like, that's just, crazy things to put in perspective. Along with, plenty of other things and stuff like that happened, from 2003 to 2025. But, like, the point is, he has been in the NBA longer than some of us, have been even watching basketball, longer than I've been watching. I wasn't watching in 2003. I was so young. And he has been in the league since then and still now. So obviously now, soon he will retire because he's not going to play till 50. Do you think LeBron will play till 50? That would be crazy. I don't think he's going to play till 50. However, I feel like we all agree, or we all think, with the addition of Luka on the roster, that's going to give him the opportunity to play longer because Luka is, in his prime. He's 25, and Luka has plenty of years left, and he can take a lot of the, responsibility off LeBron. In terms of the ball handling, because we know Luka likes to have the ball in his hands. He's, pretty ball dominant. I'm not even saying that in a negative way. I do think it hinders, him and his team sometimes. I do think he should get off the ball more. But just in a general sense, he's very good being on the ball. So it definitely is going to help LeBron conserve energy because the only thing about Anthony Davis, he was a pretty good fit with LeBron. Obviously, Anthony Davis is a, really, really, really good defender, and they complemented each other, especially after being together for so long. They learned each other's tendencies. But the thing about Luka that Anthony Davis, couldn't do or didn't really do is that Anthony Davis is not a ball handler. He's not, I know he used to play point guard, but in the NBA, he's not a point guard. He's not a point forward. That's not what he does best. And he's not a very good three-point shooter. He has, worked on that, but that is not his game. So I say all that to say, while Anthony Davis definitely could take the pressure off LeBron in terms of a defensive assignment or, having the scoring load, which Luka does too. He definitely did take pressure off LeBron in some ways. But in terms of the ball handling responsibility, that is something unique that Luka can do for LeBron as compared to AD. And why I think that's really important is because, and in terms of LeBron, not retiring and being able to conserve energy, is that LeBron, we know, has always basically, I don't even want to say dominated the ball because he was never selfish in that sense. He would pass the ball to his teammates, but dominate the ball in the sense that he would be the ball handler. He would be the one making the decisions a lot. Yes, he shared the responsibility when he had Kyrie, and he obviously shared the responsibility with Austin Reeves as Austin Reeves, got more into the rotation. But we know that he likes to play on the ball because he's very good at passing and he's a very good decision maker. So to have someone of Luka's, decision making and passing caliber lets LeBron be off the ball more and not have to be, concerned about is the right decision going to be made, if that makes sense. Again, I still think Luka should get off the ball more. I think, he should move around while LeBron or Austin Reeves is on the ball. But I still have to say, being the ball handler takes a lot of energy out of you. You have to obviously use a ton of brain power to assist all these guys and find them in the right spots. And so that's the mental battle already is a lot, right? But to also be a ball handler, and then LeBron would have to be relied on, to be a leading scorer for them, that's asking a lot. So that's why I'm saying, like, the difference between Anthony Davis and Luka, although, again, Anthony Davis had his skill sets that benefited, for the team, obviously, but for LeBron, different from Luka. But the one that is unique to Luka is that now LeBron can also be off the ball more and conserve energy, and so it should be easier for him to score because he doesn't have to exhaust all his energy getting other guys involved, where Anthony Davis, couldn't take that pressure off him in that sense. In other senses, yes, but not in that sense. Somebody said, I respect your perspective of the game. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. Somebody said, I think he's got 2 more years left. He would have to take a pay cut to get the team he needs. So I don't think LeBron's taking a pay cut, and, that's his choice. Like, that, we shouldn't all, fault him for that. Like, if he wants to, get the max dollars, he's obviously worth the max dollars. We obviously know, for example, Jalen Brunson took a pay cut with the Knicks where he could have definitely gotten more. He would have gotten, how much more was it this year? I don't know if it was $100 million or something like that if he waited another year. But with the new CBA, which we talk about all the time on this channel, I know, we're tired of hearing about it, right? But with the new CBA and the restrictions and stuff like that, it's kind of it's not forcing players to not take the max contract because they're still going to get max deals and stuff like that. But like in Jalen Brunson's case, where he really wants to win a title and stuff like that, and he wants to win, and whether it's fair or not, that, some players may have to take smaller deals in order to maximize the roster. I'm not saying it's fair. I'm just saying, because of what the restrictions are. Jalen Brunson's like, I just want to win. So if I have to take less money, he's still making a good amount of money, of course. But like, if I have to take less money so I can get this, championship roster around me, that's what I'm going to do. Now for LeBron, it's a little different at this stage in his career because I'm not saying he doesn't want to win any more rings. I think LeBron absolutely wants to win another ring. I don't think there's any doubt that LeBron wants to keep winning. Like, who likes to lose? But, because he has already won 4 rings, like, if he didn't win another ring, let's say, but he took max dollars, it's not, I don't know that it's going to change his legacy, if that makes sense. Like, I think people are pretty solidified on what they think about LeBron's career. Now, obviously, if he won, like, 2 more rings and stuff like that, different. But, like, as it is, if he just took the money and the roster is not a championship contender, people already have their opinion on where they think LeBron, lands all time. Whether you have him wherever you have him in, the top 5, whatever it is, people aren't really going to change their opinion. Even if, like, let's say, like, LeBron took a pay cut, just to your point, and they built a really good roster, but they end up, not getting to the NBA Finals. It's not going to, you know what I mean? Like, people are still going to be like, okay, well, LeBron is still this place in NBA history. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to really change people's opinions. So that's why I'm saying, like, unless they win a championship, then yes, obviously. Somebody said if he cut down, I guess it's the same person, if he cut down from 50 million to about 25, he'll be good. Well, I'm not saying I'm not saying, like, it's hard to say what someone should or shouldn't do, right? Like, I'm not saying that if he took a pay cut, that he wouldn't be able to get more talent around him. But I'm just saying at this point in his career, I feel like compared to, like I said, Jalen Brunson, who is searching for their first ring, I don't want to say it's not a priority because that's not the right word. Because obviously winning is always a priority for LeBron, but, like, it's just a different stage in his career. Because I think when he went to Miami, I'm pretty sure he took a pay cut there. So I don't think it was as large of a pay cut as, Jalen Brunson took, but, like, he did take a pay cut when he went to Miami to get his first ring. So I feel like different stages of your career have different motivations, right? So with that being said, so LeBron, is going to now have Luka, who's going to take some responsibility off him ball handling, as I was saying. And so I do think that gives LeBron the ability to potentially play a little bit longer because he's conserving energy in certain ways. And we know Luka has led teams to the NBA Finals. We saw it last year. He literally, not this past season obviously, but the year before, the Mavs were in the finals. And one of the biggest reasons is literally Luka. And then they traded him. Still don't get that. None of us will ever understand that. But however, Luka fell into the Lakers' lap. And so now LeBron has a legit, like, you probably consider Luka a top 5 player. So he's like a top 5 player right next to him in his prime. The other thing about Anthony Davis, which is not his fault, and I know Luka has, had his fair share of injury history, in his, young career. But Anthony Davis kind of had a reputation, he's been pretty healthy recently, although this year he got hurt. But like once he got to the Lakers, he was actually a lot healthier than he was prior to getting to the Lakers. But he did have a reputation for getting hurt a lot. And he did have injury, riddled seasons with the Lakers, even with LeBron. And so I felt like even though Luka has also had his injuries, I feel like people are more concerned about Anthony Davis's potential injuries than like Luka's. Because we see Luka sometimes just getting hurt and then he just gets up and plays anyway. You know what I mean? So like, it just depends on how you look at that. But like, I do think obviously Anthony Davis is older than Luka, and because of his injury history, that is also a concern for the Lakers. But again, we're talking about LeBron retiring, and if Anthony Davis is not out there to help him, that's not going to help him conserve any energy to be able to play longer. I think my guess would be if LeBron is able to play until his youngest son, Bryce, because I think Bryce is going to college this year. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know exactly his age. But I think Bryce is going to college this year. I feel like I saw that he committed to Arizona. I don't know if that's true or not. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if LeBron is able to still play, I feel like if he can play, if Bryce is, getting drafted, if he gets drafted when he is eligible for the NBA, if that's what he wants to do, if LeBron can play with Bryce and Bronny, I think he'll do that. And then I think after that, which again would be 2 years with that timeline, then I think he would like retire. He'd be like, all right, that's enough. Like, I feel like he'd be like, that's enough. But to be able to play with both of your sons is kind of crazy. Like, I understand people have mixed opinions about, Bronny and getting drafted and stuff like that. But just like all the opinions aside about what you think about Bronny and all that stuff, just the literal elements of being able to be in the league so long that you got to play with both of your sons is wild. That is wild. So, with that being said, if I had to guess, if LeBron is still able to play at that point, that's when I think he would retire. Like 2 years from now or whatever that timeline is. And then I think, he'll be 42 at that point. I think it might be time to hang it up for LeBron. And not even necessarily because he can't play anymore, because I don't even, like, obviously he can't play like 26-year-old LeBron. Like, that is apparent. He doesn't have that ability. We can all see that. But he hasn't slowed down enough to be like, because there's like, 450 players in the NBA or 500 players, whatever it is. He's still, I don't even want to put a number on it because I don't even know where he lands, but he's no worse than 30, right? Like, he's no worse than the 30th best player in the NBA, right? Again, I don't know exactly where he lands. He could definitely be higher. I guess he could be lower, but like, I just don't want to put a specific number on it, but like, he's top 30 still at 40 years old, right? So to still be a top 30 player means you still have the ability to play in the NBA. Like, if he had fallen off to where he's like 350, in the NBA, then it's kind of like, maybe it's time. But because he's still somewhere in at least the top, sort of percentage of the NBA, that's why I think he can, still play for at least a couple more years. And like I'm saying, even beyond that, if he still could have the ability to play at that point. I just feel like he might just, I don't even want to say get tired of it, but it's just kind of like we saw Tom Brady, for example. He played till 45, 40, 44, 43. I forgot exactly what age Tom Brady retired. I think it was 45, but maybe, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was 42, I don't know. But we know that he retired, and then he unretired because he wanted to win again, of course. And then after that next season when they ended up, not winning, I think they lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs that year, or was that the year before they lost to the Chiefs? I forgot who they lost to. But when he unretired and came back, and then they, lost in the playoffs again, I'm not saying he couldn't play anymore. I don't think it was a question of whether he could or couldn't, but I think it was just kind of mentally to that point where he's like, all right, I guess it's time. So I feel like LeBron might be mentally at that point when we get 2 years down the line or whatever, where he's like, I think it's time. Maybe not physically, but mentally it's like, okay. You know what I'm saying? Somebody said, who's better, Steph Curry or LeBron? I mean, we're comparing apples to oranges, kind of. Like, they are both amazing players, and they have both succeeded in kind of opposite ways, to be honest. Like, LeBron, obviously, one of his skills is that he's like so physically gifted and dominant. He was able to get his shot off, anytime for the most part. Like, he could, just run people down, basically. You know what I mean? Like, he's so strong. And then obviously he has the IQ and the passing gift. And then we know Steph Curry is the greatest shooter ever. We know he never stops moving, which is part of why he's so dangerous and so impossible to guard. Because even when he's not on the ball, that's actually when he's probably the most dangerous, because he's running around and getting himself an open shot. And obviously Steph Curry is very, very good at also driving to the basket. That's an underrated part of his game. People look at him and just think, oh, shooter. But he's actually one of the best at finishing in the paint. Like, seriously, he's like one of the best at it. So I think they both dominated in their own right and in their own different ways. And so I think they're both amazing. And so it's always hard to determine who's better or whatever, because lists are always subjective. But they are both amazing in their own right. So thank you guys so much for watching this live stream. I hope you enjoyed, and see you soon. Bye.